Welcome to Next Level Operators, where we spotlight the people building high-performing businesses and how they're thinking about what's next. Yes. Today we're with Frank Louis-Jean, owner and president of the Building Envelope management company. And Frank has been in contracting since he's been a young guy. He now runs this independent consulting firm that's focused on inspections, assessments, project oversight, and they deal with design work, and they deal with large commercial portfolios across the country. And Frank is one step removed from the actual installation. He's often in situations where clarity really matters and decisions are complex. So today we're going to talk about his path and how this business works and what he's seeing across the commercial roofing space right now. So Frank, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Jesse. I appreciate it. And thank you for that introduction.
Absolutely. I've worked with, if not companies exactly like yours, I've worked with companies that share similar characteristics, and I've benefited from your involvement or companies like yours involvement in projects, and I think you play an interesting role in this ecosystem. And so I thought you'd be a good person to come on and chat with us about it. I think maybe the best place to start would just be a little bit about you and who you are and kind of how you got into this world. You've been in construction since you were a young person, and maybe we could start there. Is how did those early years look like, and kind of lead you to the path you're on today?
Sure. I won't give you the whole long story because it actually starts in high school.
Okay.
But in college, I first started in college majoring in architecture. I did more research into the life of an architect, and I didn't quite want to do that. So I switched majors from architecture to construction management, and that's where I finished off my degree. However, when I graduated, it was the economic downturn that the country faced in 2008. So construction companies wasn't hiring a guy with a degree and less than 5 years experience. I had some experience, but it wasn't in commercial contracting work. I wanted to work for, the Skanskas, the Pirtles, the Turners of the world. And they wasn't hiring, a new grad with about 4 years experience, At that time, they were laying off a lot of guys. So the people I was competing with for the same spot were people that had 5-6 years in that particular role. And they were willing to take a pay cut in order to get back in the industry. So my competition was stiff. So from there, I ended up working in human resources at FIU, Florida International University here in South Florida. And while working there, I fixed up my resume and got a better understanding what hiring managers were looking for. So I was able to highlight my skills better than I did previously. I was a certified draftsman. I did have experience doing inspection work and job oversight, but for smaller construction projects. And then from there, a roofing manufacturer contacted me. So I was contacted by Garland, and the way Garland operated, they're pretty hands-on as a manufacturer when it comes to the oversight of their projects. So they wanted somebody with my skill set to help provide that project oversight on day-to-day projects. They reached out to me, they interviewed me, the interview went well. And then from there, I started working with Garland as a project manager and inspector, facilitating that technical role. I worked for Garland for about 4 or 5 years, and then from there, amicably, we parted ways. I went off and started building envelope management, and that was in 2016, and it's been a ride since then.
Coming into the industry and recognizing the landscape and being like, all right, this is what I need to do to solve this problem, to get into the industry, to duck and weave, so to speak, and doing it successfully, and then leading to building envelope management and basically starting your own business.
Right.
For those people who are listening, what do you guys do?
So essentially, if I had to explain it to somebody who's not in the industry, I would say we act as a connecting piece between the contractor and the owner or whoever manages the building. Typically, the roof is out of sight, out of mind. And that even goes to some people who work in the industry. For the most part, from my experience, you have very few people that are knowledgeable when it comes to roofing. And I'm referring to owners and facility managers and so forth. So at times, those individuals do rely on someone like myself who can kind of connect those dots and identify exactly what they need and how to approach it. And on the other side, on the contracting side, I can filter what the client is trying to say to somebody who's responsible to doing the work. So you as a contractor, when you're approaching a job, even if you're approaching a job from a bidding standpoint, I can clear up that language, that what the owner wants versus what you and your competitors have to bid on. So in a sense, I'm a connecting piece.
So you're able to communicate through the lens of the customer, I think is what you're saying, right? You can speak the contractor's language and the customer's language, right?
Yeah, okay, so let me walk you through a hypothetical scenario.
Uh-huh.
Owner has a roof issue. It's leaking. And that's all they're aware of, that it's leaking. Typically, when someone like myself isn't involved, they get a leak and then they go to Google or the Yellow Pages, depending on how old they are, and they say, hey, let me find 3 contractors and give them a call. So they call these 3 contractors and say, hey, my roof is leaking. What do you think? I need it fixed. So those 3 contractors, sometimes they'll go out and see 3 completely different issues and present 3 different solutions to the owner. Now, the owner is at a crossroads on which solution to pick. They don't have a clear understanding of which solutions correctly identify their issues and which solution that they're getting a bang for their buck for. Whereas if they call someone like me, my job is to go identify the issue and then relay that information to the client and say, hey, look, this is what you have, and I back it up with photo documentations and my expertise.
Got it.
Then I can draft out a scope of work saying, hey, this is the scope of work that's going to solve your issue. So if it's a repair that's needed, or if I said, hey, what I'm seeing, I think we need to do a moisture survey to see just how big this issue is. Perform the moisture survey, I can say, hey, this roof is over 25% wet. We might need to do a full tear off, and then this is how we approach it. So once I draft out the language of what work needs to be done, that's when we can call you and your competitors and say, hey, this is exactly what we want, and this is how we want it done. Now, you and everybody you're competing against bid apple to apple on that project. So no matter which contractor the client goes with, they're going to get exactly what they need for the best price.
Now I understand what you meant when you were saying, you're able to communicate on behalf of them. It's not a terminology thing as much as, and this is actually the thing that I like most about your business model, right? Like I do commercial projects, and the apples to apples thing, is drive me nuts sometimes when I'm bidding a project and somebody else is bidding a totally different project on the same building, right?
Right.
So that to me is you're helping them understand like what is their interest, right? And and then communicate, their needs very clearly. And that's where, you bring clarity to it. I like that. So I do have one other question. What you're working at, this other manufacturing company. Mm-hmm. What drew you into this business model, to this niche? What was the opportunity you saw, or what was the pivot point? What drew you in?
So while I was working with Garland had a relationship with another consultant, a gentleman by the name of Paul Jess. Paul Jess is like a mentor to me. And luckily for me, he was very forthcoming with information. Whenever I had a question or was curious about something, Paul was always there to be a teacher and guide me. And whenever he did something that didn't quite make sense, he didn't mind me challenging him. Or I wouldn't even call it challenging. It was more so, hey, I've seen it done this way. What made you do it this way? I'm just curious. And he would always explain, okay, people who've done it this way do it this way for this reason. The reason I do it this. And he was just a wealth of knowledge. So being around Paul and observing what he does and just talking to him about just the ins and outs of being a consultant, what made him go into it and how did he enjoy it? What was his work-life balance in that role? And everything he said made sense to me. And that's the area I wanted to operate in. I was happy operating in the technical aspect of Garland, but there's only so much room for growth in that role with Garland. Again, they're a manufacturer where there's room to growth is in sales, and I didn't really want to get into sales. So at that point, as I've pretty much grown as much as I could with that company, I figured, okay, this is the best opportunity for me to, kind of leave the nest and try to spread my wings and fly on my own. And that's what I did.
So in terms of the projects you get involved in, what typically brings you into a project, and at what point in that process are you brought in?
You mean like how do I find my clients, or?
No, like, what's the cause, right? Customers
okay,
need you, so yeah, what inspires them to reach out to you to bring you into the project, and at what point in that process of, their process are you brought in?
There's several different entry points where someone like myself will be called on, or myself will be called on. I've had clients that were ready to move forward with the roofing project, and they wanted someone to kind of facilitate everything. So they would call me and say, hey, Frank, we know we want to replace the roof, but we need somebody to, design the work and then help us bid it out. And once the job is bidded, provide roof observation inspections and make sure the contractors are doing what is specified. So on that aspect, I'm brought in from a design standpoint. And then there's other clients that have multiple assets and they're saying, hey, look, we have some money. We know we want to do roofing work, but we don't know where to start. So can you come out and assess, what we have and give us a report letting us know what we have, what we need to do, and more or less how much it's going to cost us so we can start managing this budget efficiently. So those are the two key areas where I'm brought in for the services I provide. So it's either they want to start a roof asset management program and they want to start from ground and have me do the full-on assessments of their building, letting them know where the repairs are needed, where the restoration or the recoveries are potentially needed, and what needs to be replaced, and when does that need to happen. And then there's the client that knows that, hey, I need work done. I just need help getting from A to Z on this project. So they bring me in, I assess it and say, hey, this is a candidate for a replacement. And they may say, hey, I don't have the money to cover a replacement budget. We do core reports and realize, hey, it only has one system on it. And we've done a moisture survey, it's less than 25% wet. We can actually recover this thing. So now you save money on the full tear off. Does that fit the budget? And if it does, now I'm drafting out a scope of work that fits a recovery budget and not a full on tear off replacement. So I can come in at different entry points.
Yeah. What strikes me, just working with property managers, owners, maintenance, managers, people who are, responsible for these buildings. I understand we've got a problem, let's address it, right?
Right.
The other side of your business is the one that, seems more complicated to me and no less useful or valuable. In fact, it just takes that kind of forethought and that kind of forethought and planning and decision to invest in your property. Is that, a bigger hurdle, that side of your business, because it requires maybe education and that, or do you find that, there's just a lot of people out there that are looking for that kind of thing, or is education a lot of your process?
I'm glad you brought that up. I would say the biggest hurdle in my business is education. Again, the roof is out of sight, out of mind. So a lot of people aren't concerned about it until they see the issue that it brings. So with that being said, a lot of my efforts on LinkedIn and on professional platforms is to offer free education, if you will. So I write newsletters and blogs on common issues that I've come across, and I educate my clients on it, or potential clients or people that follow me. Because that's the biggest hurdle. If you don't know what you don't know. So I may come to you, let's say if I'm trying to solicit your business, you run a hospital and you have, 110 roof sections. And, I may say, hey, have you done an asset management plan? How often are you replacing roofs? And it's like, oh, we replace, 5 roofs a year. And it's like, okay, well, what method are you using to choose these buildings? We just see which one has the most work order. And it's like, that's kind of counterproductive. Let me help you, with a simpler way, or something that will get you, ahead of the issues before they happen. Because if you're being reactive, you're in the long run, you're spending way more money than you need to. Your systems are going to fail sooner because you're not providing any maintenance to upkeep them. Your warranties are going to get voided because you're not taking care of your buildings after you replace them. So it's going to cost you more in the long run. Whereas if I educate you on a proactive approach, you're going to catch issues when they're a lot cheaper to fix. Your roofs are going to last a lot longer, and then your relationships with the manufacturers are going to be in much better standing because you're taking care of the product that they sold you. So being able to relay all that information to potential customers, it has been the biggest hurdle. Because again, the people I deal with, these facility managers, it's not just the roof that they take care of. They take care of the entire building. Any pipe that leaks, any door that breaks, any tile that's cracked, it all falls on their plate. So at any given day, they have 101 items that they have to check off their to-do list. So me trying to squeeze in and say, hey, let me try to take this off your plate sometimes can be a task.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, you're saying those things and I'm like thinking about my own business, right? In the same, like, it's like, it's hard to get people to engage what they don't know, and so it's
Right.
like, take time out of your life, your schedule, your busy day to talk to me about this thing that isn't even on your radar yet. And so how do I make that quick impact of like, this is worth 5 minutes of your time. Let me just get inside your head for a minute.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, and then so you said you go to trade shows, which that makes sense to me. It's like a business model because you can get in front of somebody, and talk to them, and that, I like that too. I haven't done a ton of that for our business, but when I say my business, I think my AI business. People aren't really using that yet, and so that's the same thing. Like the value of like solving these problems for them and the ROI, but how do you
I would say if you haven't done that, you need to. And the reason I would advise you to do more trade shows is the mindset people are in when they're at a trade show. If you're cold calling and somebody's at their desk, more than likely they already have an issue on the front of their brain that they're trying to solve. Whereas in a trade show, everybody is in a different mindset. They're in the mindset of to be entertained to a degree. Where if they meet somebody, they're going to listen to you with open ears versus, the shut ones that they listen to you when you call them out of the blue. So usually I get the best feedback at trade shows because at that point it's like, hey, this is what I'm here for. I'm here to talk and meet new people. So in that moment, I can give them an elevator speech that can capture their attention, and then I'm asking them, okay, well, let me follow up with you for a 30-minute call, and I can go into more detail as to how I help my potential clients, and if there's some synergy, then maybe we can take it further. But I try to, at least lock in a no pressure 30-minute call where it's like, hey, just give me a full 30 minutes to kind of fill me out before you tell me no.
Yeah, totally. I think that's my funnel too. Is like just trying to get a 30-minute call, 15-minute call actually is one of my flows where I'm trying to get a 15-minute call to get the 30-minute call, or get an hour call actually is a 15-minute call to an hour call.
Yeah, their time is valuable. You got to respect it.
Totally, yeah. It's business, and I love it. Honestly, I love the problem solving of it all, and the human psychology and all that that goes into figuring it out and bringing solutions to people that I believe in my solutions. I believe in the value of them, and how do you get people to recognize them, and give you an opportunity to, So in that vein, I was looking on your website, and we had a little conversation before about technology. How do you use technology, and do you use it to that end? To show the value of what you're bringing and the return on investment. How do you personally think about the tools in your work, and has technology genuinely helped you do a better job?
Yeah. I would say right now in my line of work, drone technology has really come a long way. There's several companies that offer different services involving drones. I've seen some that do a terrific job with infrared moisture surveys, and that can save a lot of time, especially on large facilities like warehouses, where you can really capture a large area in a smaller amount of time, and you can really get a good, no pun intended, but a bird's eye view of what areas are affected by moisture intrusion and what areas are pretty much dry. You would still have to go and put boots on the ground yourself to kind of verify what you're seeing or pinpoint exactly where the issues are coming from. So it still requires an expert hand involved, touching the actual project, but drones have made work very, very easy for large scale projects. So I would say that's probably the first one that comes to mind.
The moisture one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yes, a good friend of mine, colleague, who I worked for a long time, he just invested in that drone, like some huge monster drone in one of these huge boxes that does exact moisture stuff in Florida. So actually, you probably got a guy, but I'll give you his name anyways after we're done.
No, please do. Please, it doesn't hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, Brad Stramberg. Shout out to Brad Stramberg.
What part of Florida is he in, if you don't mind me asking?
I mean, he works all over the southern Gulf Coast. I think he's down in Tampa, St. Pete, but they've been all the way down to Bonita Springs, and
I'm familiar with all those areas. Yeah, okay.
Naples, so not as far down as you are down in Miami. That's actually the area. No, he's not far. He's not far.
Yeah, he's not far from me at all.
I've worked in that market for since 2016, and that basically that thing I just described, I've worked with there because I've worked with Brad. Okay. Although Brad has just brought in a new service of doing this because he sees that opportunity with that technology and the value that it's bringing.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Another thing he can probably look into when he's ready to expand, another piece of technology that I'm seeing is you have companies that are able to do. Are you familiar with Matterport?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so quick. Matterport is a company that allows you to do like a 3D rendering of a space. Realtors used it a lot. Architects and some construction people use it as they're building. They will scan the interior space and it creates a 3D model. Well, you have some drones now that have that capability of doing that for the exterior of the building. So it's not just roofing, it's the entire building envelope where the drone will fly down on a predetermined pattern, take a bunch of pictures, and I believe they use the type of laser that these self-driving cars use, and it kind of marks these, hundreds of points on the building, and then it will construct a three-dimensional model of it. And that has been pretty impressive to see.
I have heard of that technology, not through that company. I can't even remember the name of the company. I was at some gathering where there was a company doing something similar to that. I don't know how identical, but yeah, that's amazing. Honestly.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's a similar technology through AI where you can just record your entire inspection and speak into it, and then it just takes it and turns it into a report with all the pictures and connected to all your language, and just I don't know, this technological stuff is I'm very excited and interested in it, and it's definitely changing the way that we operate, and it could be more efficient. And the reality is especially, well, no, I think it's across the board. I think the truth is that judgment and expertise and thoughtfulness from a human are still integral to doing this. And I guess I want to ask you, where does judgment and expertise still matter most, regardless of tools in what you do?
Judgment is still key. I mean, nothing at this point, nothing can replicate a person's experience when dealing with a building and construction. The tools help, and that's just what they are. They're tools, and tools in the hands of someone incapable aren't going to get them anywhere. However, if you understand what you're doing and you understand how to wield the tools at your disposal, you're going to be pretty dangerous at what you do. And I'm not saying dangerous in a bad way. I'm just saying you're going to be a force to be reckoned with. So, for example, like you mentioned, an AI tool where somebody speaks into it and it matches the verbiage with the pictures they've taken and it drafts out a report. If you were to hand that to somebody that doesn't know what they're looking at or isn't experienced enough to understand the type of issues they're seeing and what could be potential causes, now they're just walking a roof and they're saying a whole bunch of well, maybe, I don't know. It's not going to be a very good report, but if you give that tool to somebody, days drafting this out.
Absolutely.
And really, he didn't. He just knows what he's talking about, and he just talked through it. So
that's a perfect example, and that's a perfect example. It really is, and it speaks to I talk to people a lot who have concerns about the AI, and I'm highly engrossed in it right now, and I just see that the human component is still so vital, and at least at this point it's not the stuff that we're working with is not replacing the humans. It's just turbocharging. Is right. It's like in the right hands you're dangerous. I like that. Like that's how I feel personally. I'm like this because I've already got a baseline, like it's just making me like way more efficient, faster, making me a little sharper.
I mean, before AI, you had people in the graphic design business, and they were probably a little bit apprehensive about Photoshop, saying anybody can use Photoshop, and that's not the truth. If I were to hand anybody a Photoshop subscription, they're not going to produce anything.
I've been using Photoshop for 10 years, and I can hardly use it still.
Right, and then there's people that really understand graphic design, and they took the time to learn the tool of Photoshop, and you see the work they're able to produce, and you're like, man, this is incredible. And that's all it is. I mean, with everything, technology improves what humans can do, and it does two things. The humans that take the time to understand their craft and understand the tools at their disposal, they're going to get that much better. Then there's going to be a group of people that think, oh, I can just pick this up and do what that guy does. And they're going to be in for rude awakenings. So it's going to do one or two things. It's either you understand your craft and you continue to get better at it, and you understand how these tools can help you in your craft, and you go ahead and continue to improve. Or if you think it's a shortcut, you're going to be in for a rude awakening.
I agree. So, we're getting near the end here, and I'm just curious, what you've seen in your business over the years. How has your business grown over the years, and what's driving that growth, and what do you see coming your way?
I would say I see now a lot of people are becoming more conscious of sustainability and wanting to save money on doing so many replacements a year. And you have more manufacturers that are pushing for more sustainable options when it comes to their products. So with that being said, I do see an increase on people wanting to become more familiar with roof asset management plans and preventative maintenance program. I've spoken to contractors who saw an uptick in the maintenance work that they've been doing. My colleagues, other people, I wouldn't say colleagues, but other people in my industry have also seen an uptick on the asset management portion of their business. So I would say slowly but surely our industry is coming around, because before, people in my role were unheard of. When I told people I was a roof consultant, they were like, okay, that doesn't mean anything to me, like explain it. And then after I explained, they're like, oh, okay, I could see where you fit in. Now I'm seeing a bit more people that are more conscious and more aware of the role that I facilitate on a project and the value that I bring.
Interesting. And not just based on a monetary thing. There's, you're saying that there is also a maybe moral component of environmental, of sustainability and environmental consciousness, which that makes sense to me, and it's aligned with me. I care about those things, and it hadn't really struck me that might be driving some of this desire to repair instead of replace.
Right. I mean, with less replacements, you have less roofing material in landfills. And then there's some companies, their name escapes me now, but they even offer like recycling programs where if you're able to tear off their membrane and ship it back to them, they can break it down and reform new, I believe it was a PVC membrane. They can, form new PVC membranes from the recycled material. And that material they give rebates or something on it. So manufacturers are doing their part in sustainability, where they're making products that are either made by recycled material, or they're asking you to send them, their old membranes after a tear off, and they can kind of reuse it, or, break it down and get all the impurities out and then reform it and stuff. So I would say it's not talked about a lot, but there's a lot of sustainability efforts being done in our industry. There's even a membrane where it's a modified bitumen membrane, and the granules actually absorb like smog or what's the material that car exhaust put out? Is it CO?
Carbon monoxide.
Carbon monoxide, or it absorbs that. So it essentially, those membranes are cleaning the air. So there's quite a bit, and then of course there's green roofs, and then there's also blue roofs, which is roofs that trap rainwater so you can reuse it. So there's quite a few sustainability efforts that are being done in our industry.
That's cool. You are speaking about things that I'm not even familiar with, and I'm in this industry, and so having somebody who is in the engineering world and involved in your projects obviously brings additional knowledge and value. If someone in the trades wants to operate at a higher level and be involved in better decisions, what's one thing that they should start thinking about differently? Some closing advice is what I'm looking for.
Think about the life cycle costs and not just the installation costs. If you're looking to have a new roof installed, you want to think about what it's going to cost you to maintain per year, and not just the initial install price. You want to think about what materials are being installed. You want to think about how your details is being handled, because that dictates how your roof is going to operate. Your roof performs just like everybody else, just like everything else. I mean, if you buy a car with a V8 engine and you don't change the oil in 3 years, what do you think is going to happen to it? It's going to blow up on you. If you install a roof and you're not cleaning out the the drains, and you're not clearing out the gutters, and you're not checking, the caulking on the counter flashings and so forth. What do you think is going to happen to that roof after a few seasons? Those areas are going to fail. So you want to think about, how much areas, linear feet of counter flashing that you have to check. You want to think about how many pitch pockets you have on that roof, and you want to think about how are those details being addressed. Are you using a liquid applied flashing, or are you going old school and putting pitch pockets? Those things matter in the life cycle cost. Whereas, let's say a liquid applied flashing may be a higher cost now on the install, but it's cheaper to own over time. So these are things that I try to educate my clients on. So if you get fixated on that initial install price, that life cycle price can be a lot higher than you anticipated. So you want to think about a system where, it's a nice balance where it's like I can afford it now, but it's not going to beat me up down the line as I continue to take care of it. It's like somebody who doesn't have a good job, but they came across a lot of money and they say, hey, I'm going to buy this S-Class Mercedes-Benz. And it's like, cool, you can buy it now, but you understand every 4 months when you take it to maintenance, that's going to cost you $700. And you don't have a good job to pay that maintenance fee every 3 to 4 months. So is that a good investment for you? Whereas you could have bought a Lexus or a Nissan, where you could afford it now, but those maintenance costs are a lot lower, so you can own that car for a lot longer without it giving you issues. Make sense?
That does make sense. Good advice. I'm sure everyone appreciates it. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your time. And honestly, I'm going to keep you in mind for my next situation down in Florida, where I'm dealing with a confused property manager or owner or HOA president who's trying to figure out the right decision and handing out, or collecting bids that are not apples to apples, and they really need somebody, and I need somebody to come in there and clear this up for me. I'll keep you in mind for a recommendation for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And
Absolutely.
even if you just want a friend to talk to, hit me up, man. It was fun talking to you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was good talking to you as well. Thanks so much for joining us today.
And thank you for having me. I appreciate it.